If you do have a small audience, it's possible to go viral. It's possible to reach much wider than your own kind of first degree network. But for me, I'm still trying to bring it back to your target audience and who is likely to buy from you. That's ultimately who you really want to get in front of. My first client was a former boss who was a partner in a management consultancy firm, and it was $500 for 10 posts. And we did an interview. I redrafted his profile and then shared 10 posts with him, and it scaled from there. And what I actually found was being in the position of a side hustle. So I spent 12 months where it was just a side hustle. It was my evenings, it was my weekends. I've got 2 young kids.
All right, these are the 3 types of posts you need to make money on LinkedIn, how to do LinkedIn as a side hustler, and the common and costly mistake you're probably making on LinkedIn. This is the Side Hustle Show. It is the business podcast you can actually apply. Today's guest has taken his LinkedIn ghostwriting side hustle from zero to a multi-6-figure business, generating millions of impressions along the way. And he's here to fill us in on how to make money on LinkedIn this year. From joemackay.info, Joe Mackay, welcome to the Side Hustle Show.
Thanks for having me, Nick. I'm really looking forward to our chat today.
And me as well. LinkedIn has long been ignored as a social platform for me. And after our LinkedIn lesson, Joe's got a business idea to donate, so be sure to stick around for that. Plus, we've got the triple threat. This is Joe's favorite tool, tactic, and book from the last 12 months. But let's kick it off with those 3 types of posts that every side hustler needs to do.
I try and keep things really, really simple. Like there is a lot of advice out there. For me, it is as simple as 3 types of posts. The first type of post that I look at is really about awareness. So this is usually going to be a story about you, about your side hustle, about where the idea came from, about why you love what you're doing, why you're passionate about it, maybe some of the struggles or the fails that you've had along the way. And so this kind of a story-based post is really meant to reach as many people as possible, to drive awareness, and to get your photo and your headline and your name in front of as many people as you can. So I think that's kind of the starting point, is going broad and telling a story.
Okay.
The second
we'll go into some examples of all these, but go ahead.
Yeah, sure. The second type of post that I think of is really around educating your target audience. So we're starting to get a little bit narrower in who we're speaking to here. You want to try and demonstrate that you're the expert or you're the person that they should reach out to when they face the problem that you solve. So you're trying to either educate them around a problem that they might have and teach your target audience how to solve that problem.
Okay.
You might unpack how you got a result for a client or a great client story. You might share a mental model or a framework or something that you apply in your side hustle with clients. And so really that next kind of layer of your 3-layered content strategy is around building trust and demonstrating your expertise with a relevant audience. So it's less about kind of breadth and volume of eyeballs and more about focusing in on who you're talking to and targeting them more specifically.
Okay, got it.
And the third post that you really need to, and this is where I see a lot of people leaving money on the table, I guess, is to make an offer. So a lot of people assume that by telling some stories and building some trust that customers will come to them, and that can happen. But it's really important to consistently and regularly remind people exactly what you do, who you help, how you help them, and then how they can work with you, and kind of make that offer and put that in front of them with a clear, simple call to action that someone can follow. That might be send me a DM, that might be join my newsletter. So making an offer of some kind and putting it in front of your target audience rather than hoping that they kind of come to you and know what action to take.
Got it. So at the end of the post, or even it could be the whole post itself, it's an offer type of post. Hey, if you want more of this, I send out a newsletter every Thursday on this topic. Make sure you join so you never miss one. Send me a message, book a discovery call, inviting people to take that next step to, deepen their relationship or do business with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that call to action kind of sits at the end, whether it's what I think of as like a light lift call to action, which would be join my newsletter or follow me, through to a really like a heavier lift, kind of a higher value call to action, which is, as you said, book a discovery call, book a strategy call, depending obviously on your side hustle and the service you're offering. And what goes really well as kind of the content of those offer-led posts is customer testimonials, great client results that you've received, where you can demonstrate ROI of whatever it is that you're offering. If you kind of start with that and potentially a story, a customer story around that, and then have a call to action that follows, that's a really powerful combination.
Okay, so I could put something like I could reformat a story from the podcast and put that on LinkedIn as a text-based post, or maybe with some image. We can talk about those type of tactics too. And then if you want more stories like this, make sure to follow the Side Hustle Show or something, like some framework like that.
Absolutely. So, if someone gets to the bottom of your post, you've grabbed their attention, you've obviously piqued their interest. It's really important to give them a next step to take before they just go scrolling by.
Has LinkedIn gone, how to describe, like more algorithm based versus more follower based, where if you create something, maybe I only have 100 connections or something, like I don't necessarily need those people to see it, but I would like the broader world to see it. If I hit that viral thread just right, like, is that going to happen? Or do I have the ability to, go beyond my existing network here?
Yeah, absolutely. That shift is coming to the algorithm on LinkedIn. It's kind of arrived already, and I think I'm seeing it getting more exaggerated. So you are more likely than ever to see viral type or algorithm-led content versus content from your direct network.
Yeah, as a user,
that can be a good and a bad thing.
As a user, it's good and bad, because it's like, Facebook, Instagram, like they're serving me up all sorts of stuff from accounts, pages that I have never followed, never really interacted with, but they're like, well, you watched this one ski video, so we think you're going to like this one too. And you're like, well, dang it, you're right. Or you looked at this one data map. I don't know. I love looking at these. and of course you spend a long time staring at it. And so they're like, oh, this guy's really engaged with this stuff. And so they show you more of that. And it's good and bad. You're like, well, I didn't ask for that. You didn't, I didn't follow this page, but for those content creators, they're able to reach a much wider audience than they otherwise would have. So I could see the positive side of it too.
Yeah, it is certainly a mixed bag, but if you do have a small audience, it's possible to go viral. It's possible to reach, much wider than your own kind of first degree network. But for me, I'm still trying to bring it back to your target audience, and who is likely to buy from you. That's ultimately who you really want to get in front of. The eyeballs can feel good, and going viral can feel good, but really, you're there, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, and for side hustlers, you are trying to turn that into a commercial opportunity. So getting in front of the right audience is the most important thing.
Are you proactively making connection requests, or is it kind of relying on this content first strategy to grow that network or that follower base on the platform?
Yeah, look, I think you definitely need both. So I think one of the most powerful aspects of LinkedIn is this ability to search by industry, by job title, by company. So if you're selling a service or have an offer that kind of relates to a certain type of worker, or someone who works in a specific industry or with a certain job title, it's a really powerful tool to do that proactive outreach and build your audience, like take it into your own hands to curate an audience that's going to be relevant to you by sending those connection requests. Then your content strategy is really what becomes your shop window, kind of becomes the proof point that you know what you're talking about. When they look at that connection request from you, when they see you show up in the feed, that's where that kind of trust building comes in, and hopefully you're then able to put an offer in front of a relevant audience later. So I believe the two really need to sit together. You need to go out and build your own audience, and then create content to feed that audience and nurture them.
Is there a rule of thumb for how many requests to send on a daily or weekly basis without hitting some spam and red flags?
It's more of a rule of Microsoft than a rule of thumb. I think you can send 100 connection requests per week, and I think that doubles if you have LinkedIn Premium.
Okay.
So yes, you will. If you're doing it manually, you'll just get told that you've hit the limit. There are some automation tools out there which LinkedIn is aware of and is cracking down on some of that stuff. I've never used kind of an automation tool to grow my audience. You can, and they plug in, but I know that LinkedIn is tightening the screws on those.
Got it. Okay. I want to go back to the this top of the funnel, this awareness type of post. Can you give us some examples or frameworks of, it's got to be, hook, story, call to, I imagine there's a handful tools in your tool belt that work really well to try and drive this initial awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, something that I'm seeing work really well at the moment is, because I think like all social media, LinkedIn can be a place of overblown positivity. It feels like everyone's making seven figures in their sleep and conquering the world. And so talking about a challenge that you faced, talking about a fail that you had or a mistake that you made along the way in starting your side hustle or building your side hustle, is a really great way to, like, people want to see. That's compelling content. People do want to learn what happened. But it's also a way to kind of be authentic and share, I guess, a little bit behind the scenes and build that trust kind of at the same time. So I try and use LinkedIn in a really honest way. There is obviously some polish and some curation that goes into putting something out in public. But so I guess what I think of is we have a personal life and we have a private life. And if you can get close to that line, so if you can share something from your personal life, especially like as a side hustler or as a solopreneur, we are the brand, we are the business. If you can get close to that line where you're kind of almost in your private life without, breaching any trust or sharing anything that you're not comfortable sharing, that can be a really rich vein of stories and ideas and things that you can share that will resonate with a wider audience.
Okay. The one, the opening line that I see over and over again, and you can probably apply this to just about any niche, is like, 100 million people use ChatGPT, but 99% of them, are using it wrong, or, half of America has a side hustle, but, 99% of the people aren't doing it right. And then, kind of goes in from there. Like, I mean, is this just a factor of people ripping off what has worked for other people, like other viral threads or other viral posts, and saying like, well, how can I apply this to my, I guess that's one way to reverse engineer it.
Yeah, look, there certainly are. And, if you spend as much time as I have on LinkedIn over the last couple of years, you do start to spot these almost canned templated hooks.
Yeah.
The 99%, really specific numbers and figures in opening hooks are really popular. So there is a lot of that, and I think tactics like that can help. And there's any number of creators you can go and purchase some hook templates or some post templates from. But I predict in 2025 we're going to see more focus on, I'm calling it normcore content, so more your Crocs and socks style content, like content that is genuine, it's real, it may not be as polished, but it's based on kind of genuine insight, I guess, is what I'm hoping at least to see take over more this year. There will always be that tendency to viral kind of templated style hooks.
Yeah.
But I don't think it serves you in the long term.
Are there any tools, like as somebody who creates a lot of content but never finds the time or prioritizes the time to post on social media, is there some where it's like, how can I take this long form podcast interview as one example and like, crank it through some machine where it comes out as like a coherent, LinkedIn formatted type of post?
So there's a few. So I mean, for video repurposing specifically, you've got Opus Pro, which does a really good job of taking long form content and creating clips. I think you're a Descript user. Descript has started offering that as well. So
okay,
vertical video as a format on LinkedIn is really trending upwards. LinkedIn has installed a kind of a TikTok style video feed. So for you as someone who's going to have a lot of video content up your sleeve, some simple repurposing, some shorts, that kind of thing could work really well. In terms of going from a video into like a text-based post, ChatGPT can be really helpful to help you kind of pull out key stories and moments. I tend to lean towards moments in a conversation, like if it's a podcast, or for me, if it's a coaching call with a solopreneur or with a client, the moments when I'm feeling like I'm leaning into the conversation and I can tell they're leaning in, if I'm sharing an example or a framework or a story, my brain is kind of is tracking those moments when it feels like something important is kind of passing through the airwaves, if that makes sense. So I use a lot of tools to help what I do, but I'm also, at the end of the day, just trying to use my own antenna from the conversations I'm having to go, that felt like a moment, or that felt like an anecdote or a story or a model that would be relevant, would be good to share.
Okay.
So for me, it's that combination of tools, and then that human element of just feeling the moment, I guess, if that's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, and you can look through your own feed to see what is showing up, what is working, and obviously apply that to your own voice and to your own niche.
Absolutely. I think there is an element of reverse engineering that's possible and that's helpful. See the types of posts that you resonate with, and see what you could apply from your own history, your own story, your own lessons. But novel content, I think, is really important as well. What's something that only you could write about, or a post that only you could create.
As far as the format, this is really helpful. Like, there may be a somewhat of a blue ocean in short form video on this platform because this hasn't historically been a short form video platform. And so that's like, getting more eyeballs. Anything else, best practices as far as images versus text versus video versus putting a link in the text, like all these little nitty gritty tactics?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn really wants to keep people on platform. So posts that include external links will get punished by the algorithm. LinkedIn will try and suppress those to an extent. So if you include like a YouTube link in your post, or a link to sign up to your newsletter directly, that will really harm your reach. The flip side is you're going to get a better conversion rate if it's easy for someone to see your post and then click out to something. So that's sometimes a trade-off that you might be willing to make. Adding images to posts certainly helps, particularly if they are a story-led post. The classic LinkedIn selfie is a bit of a thing for a reason. It does seem to help the algorithm.
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's just again, from I've spent a lot of time in the big blue box, and you'll see a lot of creators who are just adding random selfies to kind of every post, and it's a grab for reach, and it definitely works. Just for me, it's where's that line of how you want to present your brand and what's relevant to the post or to the story. But adding a photo of yourself will definitely improve the reach of that post.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. What other tips can I share? So video is absolutely on the rise. Like, I'm really leaning into video for 2025, short form video. And then your text posts, I think the key is to avoid slabs of text. Like, paragraphs and paragraphs of text are just hard to digest. So use plenty of white space. Hit the enter button. Give it lots of line breaks, short paragraphs.
Sure.
Make it easy on the brain.
Okay. And for yourself or for your clients, any rules regarding, I got to post 3 times a day, I got to post 3 times a week? Like, what kind of frequency are you finding works best?
The kind of 80-20 rule, where you're going to get 80% of the value, is 3 times a week. And for me, I would suggest Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometime before most people would start work in your own local time. So for me, I try and schedule posts to go out at 8:30 a.m. where I am, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's a really simple, and again, if you tie it back to that kind of 3 posts that we're looking at, you could share roughly one of those each week on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's a really simple, manageable, effective content strategy that's going to help you kind of feed the algorithm the way it needs to be fed, but also not spend forever creating content for LinkedIn.
Is there a way to batch schedule those, like upload and schedule in advance, or do they prefer you like drafting them in platform and just hitting enter like live?
No, so scheduling is a thing. So you can absolutely, there's a little clock icon when you write a post. You'll see a little clock icon next to the post button, and that's where you can schedule. So for
Okay.
me, I'm trying to batch at least a week in a time and get myself a week's runway in advance.
Okay.
So you can get it done really quick.
Okay. The second type of post, we talked about the awareness post. These were normcore content. This could be short form videos. This could be struggles, fails. I used to think this, but now I think this. It could be just trying to build awareness for, who you are, what you do, kind of thing. The education piece seems perhaps simpler. It's like, well, this is what, especially if you're building a business around stuff you already know and do, here's how to go from, here's the 7 steps to do XYZ. It could be, some results that you've gotten for a previous client. It could be, a tool or tactic that is helping you. Like, I think the education piece is maybe easier to come up with than like, oh, what would be a viral idea in this niche? Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's more intimidating. But what do you see working on the education side?
The secret sauce with this is that the best content, the most relevant content that's going to resonate with your target audience is not going to be created from scratch. It's going to be harvested. It's going to be found in the interactions you're already having with your customers. So, like I was saying before, if I'm on a coaching call and I'm sharing a lesson, or a client shares a problem or a question that they're facing with me, that question or that problem can kind of become the opening hook. And then my answer, the way I respond to that or how I help them solve that is the body of the post. And so I'm always looking at repurposing content, not across formats or across platforms, but really across, like, between delivery, between sales, and between marketing. I think you can always be repurposing across those. So you might get onto a discovery call, and the objections that you commonly hear or the questions you get before someone decides to purchase from you, those can be fantastic ideas for content that builds trust. Answer those questions in content.
Yeah, I really like this Q&A type of creative process where, especially if you're already going through the trouble of answering this question, it's like, okay, could you make a note or could you repurpose that to a new platform? Sure, you're going to have to reformat it. You're going to have to find an image or take a selfie and figure out how to answer that. But we had a guest years ago. He said, this is the single most important document that I keep on my computer. It's my questions database. It's the list of questions that people ask me. And the reason it's important is, one, it fuels this future content. But second, it kind of gives you these little hints and clues as to what your perceived areas of expertise are, where, even if you don't have a side hustle yet, well, what are people asking you questions about? That's something that they think you might have the answer to, that you probably know more about than the average person, at least more than the person asking you. And so I tried to do this for a while, like in a Google sheet, and it was like really tedious. So I just have, now in Facebook, I have a saved, label as questions, and same thing in email, in Gmail, like I have a label as questions, so I can drag stuff over there when I get email questions. And, in my case, that turns into Q&A episodes, but it could just as easily turn into Q&A content here on LinkedIn under this education category.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an important way to think about harvesting content rather than starting from scratch. And the hardest thing about creating any content is that blank page, and so whatever you can use to get past that is super valuable. The other one I would touch on, this idea of trying to take people onto, like, the workshop, like give them a tour of the workshop of what it's like to work with you or to engage with to receive your service or your product or your offer, kind of showing them behind the scenes, whatever that might look like. So might be a shot of your, where you record the podcast, or a deliverable that you give to clients, or what the onboarding document might look like, things like that, assets, collateral, stuff that you've got lying around your side hustle that give people a tour of the workshop, I think are really valuable content resources as well.
Yeah, how the sausage gets made are, my friends in e-commerce do this really well. Like, hey, new shipment just came in. Like, Okay, great. Or we don't have any room in the warehouse. Like now, it's an excuse to throw a liquidation mini sale or something. But our local ski area does this really well. They're always like even over the course of the summer, like it's not ski season, nobody's thinking about this, but they're showing like here's the improvements that we're making to our mountain. Look, we're airlifting in new chairlift poles with a helicopter, and it's like they got some cool drone footage of this. And you may not have that, but you might have it on a smaller scale. So I like this behind the scenes type of content. I think that could be really cool, like building that trust, like another touch point to build up that trust. Now, Joe, the question that comes up a lot, specifically related to LinkedIn, is, hey, I'm trying to start a side hustle. LinkedIn is like my professional workplace network for my day job, where there may not be a lot of overlap between the two, or I may not necessarily want my hey, I saw you posting about some random, like, what's that all about? It's like, how do you toe the line of what do I post publicly? Where do I need to set up a separate profile for my side hustle? Like and I get that this is the kind of a unique situation, like facing people trying to start something on the side.
Yeah, a lot of people are in this situation for various reasons. They haven't had the conversation with their employer, or it's not a possibility to have that conversation. I think you can still get a lot of value out of LinkedIn without doing anything above the surface, let's say. So I touched on before, the ability to search by job title, by industry, by company. The direct message capabilities in LinkedIn and the people that you can reach and how focused you can get to a target audience is really valuable. So if you're in that situation where you're not necessarily wanting to publicize what you're doing, then get into the direct messages. It's got good search functionality on LinkedIn. You don't need Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Premium, I think, is about $70 a month or $60 a month, and with that you can get some better access to connect with people, and you can do a lot of really good work in kind of building a prospect list and selling just in the DMs. So the way that I approach that, or I would suggest people approach that, is a simple A/B test. So when you send a connection request on LinkedIn, you can either send it just as is, or you can add a short note up to 300 characters to that request. And so I would do like a 50-50 split, send 10 connection requests without a message attached, send 10 with a simple message that, talks to the pain point you solve, or what a lot of customers talk to you about, and kind of position your service, and see which of the two kind of gets the best response rate.
Okay.
And then lean into that strategy.
Got it. Okay. And I imagine if you're creating content about your area of expertise at work, then it's, okay, I'm building my professional network. I'm, to me, it's hard to imagine an employer getting all upset about that. And maybe where the challenging part comes in, it's like, well, I do this for my day job, but now my LinkedIn profile is like completely out in left field, where I'm like, hey, it says founder of such and such other, random company. And then that's like where it starts to maybe look a little bit weird. And I, can get on my soapbox and be like, look, your employer doesn't own you 24 hours a day. Like, what do they care, what you're doing in your spare time? But like, there's still that like social norms piece of workplace etiquette.
Yeah, there is. Look, I was fortunate enough to just have a really open conversation, as part of accepting the last day job offer I had before I went full time into my side hustle, was to have that conversation that this is the side hustle that I've got. My LinkedIn channel is a key business tool for that side hustle, and that channel, I guess, belongs to me, and not every employer will be as understanding. But from my perspective, if you can be proactive, and if you can kind of stay ahead of it and be proactive with your communication, have that conversation in advance, it's going to be a load off your shoulders, rather than trying to wonder what your boss might be thinking, but do as much as you can on the side. Like if you can find a way to have that conversation, then I think it's valuable. And even if the answer is not what you hope, you'll have more information. You'll be in a position to then maybe make a more informed decision from there.
Got it. One of the exciting things about this is, yeah, we're trying to, cast a wide net with this awareness type of content. We're trying to narrow that funnel down with this educational type of content. And then we're trying to close the deal with this offer type of content. And depending on what your offer is, it may not take that many takers to build a meaningful side income. I don't know what was in your case, where it's like, okay, can we just hire you to do this for us? Like, people start raising their hands and say yes. Or for any of your clients, can you share some of the results that you've seen where people started to build their connections and all of a sudden that translated into dollars and cents?
Yeah, absolutely. For myself, it started with me just sharing my own thoughts on LinkedIn regularly and getting a bit of traction and engagement and just really enjoying that process, to then I remember vividly, my first client was a former boss who was a partner in a management consultancy firm, and it was $500 for 10 posts. And we did an interview. I redrafted his profile and then shared 10 posts with him, and it scaled from there. And what I actually found was being in the position of a side hustle. So I spent 12 months where it was just a side hustle. It was my evenings, it was my weekends. I've got 2 young kids. That meant that I priced the service at a level that kind of reflected the value of that time to me, of my free time to myself. So my entry level package is a 4-figure investment per month, and that's done for you content, and it's scaled from there. But it's, as you say, it doesn't take, depending on the service you offer, it doesn't take many prospects to build a really healthy side hustle that you can start thinking more seriously about. And that was the case for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats on building that. I like that. I don't know how you phrased it, but it was like, I want to make sure that I'm charging enough to justify the free time that I'm spending here, because my alternative is hanging out with the family, or my alternative is sleeping with young kids, or my alternative is, doing any number of other hobbies. And so you got to make it worthwhile. And if it is seen as side hustle or extra income, then it's, hey, take it or leave it. It is. This is the price. I want to circle back to this most common mistake that you see people make with their profiles or with their content there.
Yeah. So the common mistake does relate to the offer, and that is this idea that we assume that everyone in our network knows exactly what to do next if they want to work with us. We assume that we're creating all this content, we're sending these messages, we've updated our profile, like it's clear that we've got this side hustle or this business in X, whatever it is, and that just everyone knows where to find us. And if they wanted to engage us or learn more, that they would know exactly what step to take. And that's just not the reality. We are.
And even if it is, like, it puts a lot of the, onus on the prospect to take that leap of faith, or like, I don't know, unless the pain is really, really strong for them. It's like, okay, who is that guy again? Now I got to find their thing and sign up for the discovery call or whatever the next step is. But I don't know, I'm kind of with you there. I probably have been guilty of this. You almost have to be reminded of it. There's probably some marketing. Oh, you got to see the offer 7 times before you take action on it. But there absolutely is something to this.
Yeah, and so that's where this offer post, making that offer, putting it in front of people regularly, and it can literally be the same post that you post once a month. It says, here's what I do, here's the people that typically benefit most from my services, here are some of the results I've received. Book a discovery call, or go to this website if you'd like to learn more, send me a DM. One thing that's a really crispy, good call to action to use is send me a DM with info. Like, tell them exactly the message to send you, so that they don't have to sit there in front of a blank page again and go, dear Joe, I've been struggling with my business, or, take that out of their hands and just say, send me a DM with, keyword, and I'll send you some more information. And just repeating that process regularly and not being shy about that, because you're adding new audience all the time. People are busy, they're scrolling through content, and so putting that offer in front of them on a consistent basis is going to help you grow your business.
Okay. Is that automated? Like you see that all the time on Instagram specifically, like, through ManyChat or something, like comment, hustle, and I'll send you my, free guide to XYZ.
You can automate that. I personally don't. I'm trying to just get a prospect to send me a DM, and then I'm handling those myself individually. But that is another trend that's going on LinkedIn at the moment is, comment keyword for a free copy of my guide. Again, commenting is really good for virality. But I've heard rumors that LinkedIn is cracking down on this kind of behavior as well. So I would be suggesting DM a keyword to me kind of below the surface rather than a public comment.
Yeah. All right. That's fair, because it is obnoxious to see people really. But I know how the game is played, so I could have some level of appreciation for it. But at the same time, really, is this what we're going to do right now? Okay. Fine. All right. Well, that was awesome. That was a great crash course on LinkedIn. You got me inspired to kind of spruce up my profile and maybe make a renewed effort to post anything over there. It's probably been years since I posted, but we can do that after the call. Let's move on to round 2. This is donate a business idea. This is something that you might start if you had more time. This is something that you wish existed in the world. This is something maybe you see an opportunity you think listeners could run with. And so with that, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah. So I've spent a fair bit of time recently, like I would say a lot of people listening in ChatGPT, and spend a lot of time at that very surface level, sending it funny prompts, asking it random facts and figures, but more recently have dived deeper into building custom GPTs. So you can train ChatGPT on your coaching calls with clients, on your previous content, essentially building a personalized AI tool for yourself. And I could see 1,000,001 different uses for this. It might be a custom recipe GPT. It might be activities to do with the kids on a rainy weekend, like custom GPT. I think it doesn't take much expertise to be a couple of steps ahead of where your average audience member or average GPT user is, to have a lot of capability to build something that's bespoke to a one-to-one kind of custom GPT offer. And I can just see so many different uses for it.
I had thought there was some sort of character limit or internal memory, and this could be just for ChatGPT specifically, where it's you can upload 4,000 words or of something, but it's you're talking about here, what if we uploaded the last 600 episode transcripts from the Side Hustle Show, or some big body of work, or here's a copy of my book. How would Nick answer these questions? That's kind of what you're trying to ultimately build. And so this is kind of a separate tool. I don't know, where do you go to start with something like that?
Yeah, so you can go, and this is based on kind of ChatGPT as it exists now in January 2025, but you can go into Explore GPTs, and then you can hit there's a plus icon in the top right, I think, and you do need to have the paid version of ChatGPT, and you can then add attachments to a knowledge base. You give it a set of master prompts, basically that it will follow every time. Add some attachments in a knowledge base, and all of a sudden you can create whatever kind of AI assistant you need. It's very powerful technology.
And then the game plan would be to sell this to another company.
Let me. I could see side hustlers selling this to individuals. I could see people, selling it to companies. People who maybe are trying to streamline some of whether it's their content creation or have questions answered, and almost build an FAQ library from existing kind of resources and assets that they've got. I think there's endless possibilities.
I do see, maybe this is how they accomplish that. Some of the live chat customer support widgets on certain websites. You ask them a question and, it used to be, I don't understand that. Let me connect you with a human. But more and more recently, it's like, hey, it looks like you're asking a question about this. Here's, they must have fed in
Yeah.
something, some sort of large language model, like based on the question, and it, spit out a semi-coherent answer without, connecting to a human. And so maybe that's one potential application. I'm trying to go to the next step. Like the idea sounds cool, but like, who would be a customer base? Like, could you pre-sell a customer versus like, I'm gonna build this out because you may not even have access to this library of content, or
Yeah.
a
Yeah. It's a good
custom
point.
health GPT. Given that it's New Year's resolution season, like, oh, we're gonna, if you want to optimize for, you know glucose, I don't know, the anti-inflammatory GPT, right? Or something, and build it, upload everything that can be found about that specific topic, and then
Yeah. I think where I'm seeing this is just for someone who has some time and is wanting to build a side hustle, educating yourself on a tool as powerful as ChatGPT and being able to just be a few steps ahead of your average person, I think could be quite easily monetized in a whole bunch of ways. Like could just be one-to-one training sessions for, you know, boomer dad at home who wants to learn what this AI thing is about.
yeah,
It could be like, I think just, it doesn't take too long to follow your nose on YouTube or wherever you can find information to arm yourself with enough knowledge to create some really interesting stuff that you could then educate others on who are a few steps behind you on the same path.
okay. Now I'd heard of some people using it almost as a co-founder, as like as your
Yeah.
your business
Yep.
coach, so you're spitballing ideas about, and it may make sense to provide it with more context than is available on just like the public interface free version, and so you may need to do this plus icon project based thing, like here's my financials, here's everything that's gone on in the business so far,
Yep.
here's my biggest challenges, like what do you recommend type of content.
Yeah. And so I guess one really specific use case for me has been take some coaching call transcripts and some sales or discovery call transcripts, upload those and build essentially an ideal customer profile. So I create like an AI version of my ideal customer. And I then send it email newsletters that I've got in draft. I share draft LinkedIn content with it. I position offers to it and say, get its honest feedback based on everything that it knows. Build that persona, like literally build an AI avatar of who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to
Okay.
target,
Okay.
and then bounce ideas off it and see what it thinks.
Yeah. You respond as if you are, this target prospect. What do you think of this sales copy, or what do you think of this?
Well, literally, so even deeper than that, you actually create it and I give them names so that I don't kind of lose track. But my kind of ideal customer profile is called Sarah, and so she is that persona. So she's got kind of that revenue detail. She's heard my coaching calls. Like I've built a profile of my ideal audience, and then I send stuff to her.
Does she give you coherent responses? Does she give you helpful responses, or is like, I'm just talking with a robot here?
Yeah, no, if you spend the time, and there's kind of a process guide that I've outlined to feed it the right prompts to prepare it, and the key is to get that knowledge base and that master prompt right. And if you do that, the results have really surprised me. I think the one thing I would say is large language models have essentially just absorbed everything on the internet, and they really respond to you by kind of predicting what words generally follow other words in a sequence. So they're not, as much as it can feel like they're thinking critically and logically at the moment, as of whenever this podcast goes out,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
whenever we talk January, they're not actually thinking. They're just playing back, they're playing a guessing game really of what words logically fit in a sequence. But it's very useful.
Okay, and so you can, instead of having it, having consumed the entire archive of the internet, you want to feed it very specific
Narrow.
information to become an expert in in your business or in one specific area?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I've got a lot we need to do another like AI roundup episode. It's probably been a couple years. It's like, I know so much has changed and there's a lot more that I could be doing in that space to work smarter, not harder, even if it's just, with repurposing help or all sorts of strategy, other next step stuff. But that's fascinating. Custom GPT creation, Joe's business idea donation for you. Let's move on to round 3, which is our triple threat. And we're going to start off with a marketing tactic that's working right now. Could be LinkedIn related, could be something else.
Yeah. So the tactic that's working for me right now, we talked a lot about creating what I think of as broadcast content, publishing a LinkedIn post, sending an email newsletter, publishing a podcast episode. So one to many. Something that's working really well for me, if we think about, I guess, the line of work that I'm in, which is sort of high ticket consultancy, I guess, and coaching, sales are going to happen in one-to-one conversations. It's highly unlikely that a broadcast piece of content is going to directly convert into a sale. So my goal is to get into one-to-one conversations with people that may want to buy from me. And so what I'm doing now is, whether it's an email newsletter or a LinkedIn post that goes out, I'm grabbing it and I'm trying to find 3 to 5 people, I guess, somewhere in my CRM, in my funnel. I guess I would use the term prospects, and sending that piece of content to them one-to-one. And so it's a simple message like, hey, Nick, I wrote this post about the 3 types of content you need to build your side hustle, and I thought of you. And sending that kind of one-on-one to a small handful of people in my orbit has really rapidly increased the number of conversations I'm having with relevant people.
Okay, even if they may already be on your email list, even if they may already have it in their inbox, like just one extra follow-up to be like, hey, just want to make sure you saw this, or hey, I thought of you when I wrote this, or something.
Yeah, and it just, you lead with some value, you give it a small gift, and it sparks conversations more often than not. And so and again, like this idea of trying to harvest content ideas, never stare at a blank page, like use the stuff that you've already produced and then get the most mileage out of it that you possibly can.
Any thing that you're using, like, I don't know if your CRM has like, contact scoring or like any criteria, because it's like, if you have a list of thousands of people, like how are you picking who to send this to?
Yeah, look, so my CRM is a very simple spreadsheet. I have a kind of a last contact date and like a rough nurture date, and I'm trying to keep those a few weeks apart. So I'm just sorting by who's kind of due or overdue for a nurture, and then thinking about the content I've created recently and trying to line those two things up. Okay.
All right. Just trying to stay top of mind and share some goodwill.
Absolutely.
All right. Sales happen one-to-one. So how are you cultivating those one-on-one relationships, inviting people to do business with you? Love that tactic. The next segment here is a new to you tool that you're loving right now. We talked ChatGPT, we talked a few other tools, but anything that comes to mind here?
Yeah, so this is a little bit maybe in the reverse of the idea of this segment, but I actually removed the mail app from my iPhone over the holidays. And it has been a game changer. I turned off notifications for mail or email, and I actually found that was weirdly making me spend more time in email because I was always refreshing to see if anything had come in.
Okay.
And so I just made the switch over just before Christmas, removed the mail app from my phone, and so email is now confined to a batch period of time, like maybe once in the morning, once in the afternoon, each day on my computer, and that's it. And I've just found my headspace massively open up. I'm not half wondering in my phone could I have a quick look and check. It's really helped me compartmentalize my evenings and my time off.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like it was email in your case, but it might be TikTok in somebody else's. It might be Instagram. Like whatever is that thing that, I'm just going in for a quick check. And then, 15 minutes later, you're like completely derailed and distracted, and you're, especially if you've got kids, they see you staring at your phone all the time. Like, it's not great. So what is that app that needs to get deleted? Maybe go cold turkey, see how much you miss it. And, I imagine there's some withdrawal symptoms early on, and, hopefully you get over that. But that's a really interesting one. I don't know if anyone has shared that. So I like that. And your favorite book from the last 12 months?
Yeah, so this is one that's still on the bedside table. It's not quite finished, but I've taken a lot out of it already. Is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, who was the owner, or sorry, not the owner, but the manager of 11 Madison Park in New York. So one of the best restaurants in the world, and he shares all his insights on how he built a world-leading team, but really how he thinks about serving customers and being hospitable. And so I did some really interesting client gifting at the end of 2024, just using this idea, like the thinking of unreasonable hospitality, like what is a crazy nice thing I could do for my clients.
Yeah. What did you do?
Well, so I made a donation to a charity that I'm passionate about called Just Dig It on their behalf, and sent everyone a personalized video note. I don't have thousands or hundreds of customers, but just spending that time to say hi and completely personalized, one-to-one, tailored to them. And the response I got was really uplifting for me as well. It was a massive win-win. And so that book has just taught me to think, and for us, like if it's a side hustle or a solopreneur business, like we can do that stuff. We are building personal connections with the people that we're serving. And so leaning into that is really powerful on both sides, I reckon.
Unreasonable Hospitality was the book recommendation. That is a new title to me, so we'll have to check that one out. We'll link it up in the show notes, along with all the other resources mentioned in this episode, including Joe's newsletter. It's called The Thought Follower. You can find it at joemackay.info, MCKAY.info. Follow along for more LinkedIn tips, other solopreneur strategies. I think you're going to like it. We'll link that up. And Joe, thanks so much for joining me. This has been awesome. I'm taking a ton of notes on LinkedIn and everything else, and appreciate your recommendations on what is working here this year. Now, if you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. We've got hundreds, if you're just starting here, you got hundreds of episodes in the back catalog to help you make more money. And if you're wondering where to start, I want to invite you to build your own personalized playlist. All you got to do is go to hustle.show. How it works is you answer a few short multiple choice questions. You tell me a little bit about your side hustle interests, your goals, where you're at, where you want to go. And the machine is going to recommend 8 to 10 personalized episodes for you. And this is a newly updated list for this year. So again, that's hustle.show to get that custom curated playlist. Big thanks to Joe for sharing his insight. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this content free for everyone. You can hit up sidehustlenation.com/deals for all the latest offers from our sponsors in one place. Thank you for supporting the advertisers that support the show. That's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're finding value in the show, the greatest compliment is to share it with a friend. So fire off that text message to somebody who needs to hear this and learn a little bit about upping their LinkedIn strategy. And until next time, let's go out there and make something happen. I'll catch you in the next edition of The Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.